The rain fell in silver sheets over Paris, the city's golden lights shimmering on the slick cobblestones of the Rue de Rivoli. Dr. Marcus Bennett stepped out of the sleek white Mercedes, his tall frame cutting a striking figure in a tailored charcoal suit. The collar of his coat was turned up against the February chill, but nothing could dampen the fire in his dark eyes. At 34, Marcus was already a renowned trauma surgeon, his hands steady in the chaos of the operating room, his mind sharper than the scalpels he wielded. But tonight, he faced a different kind of trial at dinner with the family of his girlfriend, Camille Dubois. Camille, a 32-year-old tech entrepreneur with a cascade of copper-blonde hair and eyes the color of the Seine at dusk, waited for him under the awning of Le Cine d'Or, one of Paris's most exclusive restaurants. Her dress, a deep sapphire blue, clung to her with effortless elegance. She smiled as Marcus approached, but there was a flicker of anxiety in her gaze. "You look incredible," Marcus said, his voice low and warm as he took her hand. She squeezed his fingers, her own trembling slightly. "They're intense, but I want them to know you, the real you." He nodded, masking his own nerves. He'd faced skeptical professors, patients who questioned his credentials, and colleagues who doubted his place in the world's most prestigious hospitals. But the prospect of meeting Camille's family, her mother, the formidable Geneviève Dubois, and her brother, Luc, felt like stepping into a lion's den. Inside, the restaurant was a cathedral of opulence. Crystal chandeliers spilled light across marble floors, and the air was thick with the scent of saffron and truffle. The Dubois family was already seated at a table by the window, the Eiffel Tower a glittering backdrop beyond the glass. Geneviève Dubois was the embodiment of Parisian aristocracy, silver hair, swept into a chignon, a string of pearls at her throat, her posture regal. Luc, younger by a few years, wore his privilege like a second skin, his blonde hair artfully tousled, his suit impeccable. As Marcus and Camille approached, Genevieve's eyes swept over Marcus, lingering a fraction too long on his skin, her smile polite but glacial. Luc's lips curled in a smirk, his gaze appraising. "Dr. Bennett, is it?" Genevieve's voice was smooth, each syllable precise. "Camille tells us you're a surgeon. Quite impressive." The pause before impressive was a scalpel slicing at Marcus's place at the table. He smiled, unflinching. "Thank you, Madame Dubois. It's an honor to meet you." Luc leaned forward, his blue eyes sharp. "Trauma surgery, you said? That must be stressful. I imagine it's not as lucrative as, say, private practice. But I suppose you get to play the hero." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. "I do what I love. Saving lives is its own reward." Genevieve's gaze flicked to Camille, then back to Marcus. "And your family, Dr. Bennett? Where are they from?" "Atlanta," Marcus replied. "My mother's a school principal. My father drove city buses for 30 years. They taught me the value of hard work." Genevieve's smile didn't reach her eyes. How admirable. Paris must be quite a change. Camille's hand found Marcus's under the table, her grip a lifeline. But Marcus felt the old ache sense of being measured, found wanting. His achievements weighed against an invisible ledger of pedigree and privilege. The meal unfolded with the precision of a duel. Each course was a new opportunity for Geneviève and Luc to probe, to prod, to remind Marcus of his outsider status. Luc's questions about Marcus's research were laced with skepticism. Genevieve's compliments were edged with condescension. But Marcus met each slight with quiet dignity, his answers measured, his pride in his roots unwavering. He spoke of his work at the Hôpital Saint-Louis, of the children he'd saved, the families he'd comforted. He spoke of his parents' sacrifices, of the nights his mother graded papers at the kitchen table, of his father's hands, calloused from decades behind the wheel. Camille watched him, her heart swelling with love and frustration. She wanted to defend him, to call out her family's prejudice, but she knew Marcus needed to fight this battle on his own terms. As dessert was served, a delicate tarte au citron Geneviève delivered her final blow. "You must understand, Dr. Bennett, that our world is particular. Camille's life, her business, our family's reputation, it all requires a certain compatibility." The word hung in the air, a dagger wrapped in silk. Marcus set down his fork, his gaze steady. Madame Dubois, I fit where I'm valued. My world is built on saving lives, not chasing status. The table fell silent, the only sound, the distant clink of glasses and the soft strains of a string quartet. Suddenly, Luke's face blanched. He clutched his chest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed, his chair crashing to the floor. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. Genevieve screamed, Camille leapt to her feet, and the restaurant staff rushed forward, their faces masks of panic. But Marcus was already moving, his training kicking in. He knelt beside Luke, his hands steady as he checked for a pulse, his mind racing through protocols. He's having a heart attack, Marcus barked. Call emergency services, now. Genevieve hovered, her composure shattered, her hands trembling. Do something, please. Marcus ignored the crowd, his focus narrowing to Luke. He loosened Luke's tie, checked his airway, and began chest compressions, his voice calm and commanding. Camille, get the defibrillator from the bar, hurry. Camille sprinted across the restaurant, her heels slipping on the marble. The staff scrambled, guests pressed back against the walls, their phones raised, recording the drama. Marcus's world shrank to the rhythm of compressions, the rise and fall of Luke's chest, the seconds ticking by like thunder. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his hands never faltered. Camille returned, breathless, the defibrillator in hand. Marcus attached the pads, his voice a lifeline. Clear. The machine whined, then delivered a jolt. Luke's body arched, then slumped. For a moment, nothing. Then a gasp, a flutter of eyelids, a weak but steady pulse. Relief crashed over Marcus, but he didn't let it show. He checked Luke's vitals, kept him stable until the paramedics arrived, their uniforms a blur of blue and white. As they loaded Luke onto the stretcher, Genevieve clung to Marcus, her tears streaking her mascara. You saved him. You saved my son. Marcus nodded, his expression unreadable. It's my job. The restaurant was a tableau of shock. The guests whispered, their eyes wide. The black surgeon who'd been doubted, dismissed, had just saved the heir to the Dubois fortune. Genevieve's mask of superiority crumbled. She reached for Marcus's hand, her voice trembling. I was wrong about you, about everything. I'm so sorry. Marcus met her gaze, his own cool but not unkind. I did what I was trained to do. Saving lives is my duty, not a favor. Camille wrapped her arms around him, her tears a mix of relief and pride. The crowd parted as they left, the whispers following them into the night. But the story didn't end there. In the days that followed, the Parisian press exploded with headlines. Black surgeon saves Dubois heir in dramatic restaurant rescue. Social media buzzed with praise and debate. Marcus's face was splashed across screens, his story dissected, his background scrutinized. Genevieve, chastened, visited Luke in the hospital every day. She brought Marcus gifts, letters of apology, invitations to family gatherings. But Marcus kept his distance, his wounds too fresh. Camille, torn between loyalty to her family and love for Marcus, struggled to bridge the chasm. She confronted her mother, demanded change, but old habits died hard. One evening, as Marcus walked along the Seine, the city's lights reflected in the water, Camille found him. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice raw. For them, for not standing up sooner. Marcus took her hand, his own trembling. You don't have to apologize for them, but I need to know you're with me, all the way. She nodded, her eyes shining. I am. I love you. They kissed beneath the shadow of Notre Dame, the city's heart beating around them. But the twists kept coming. Luke, grateful for his second chance, reached out to Marcus. He asked for forgiveness, for a chance to learn. He volunteered at Marcus's clinic in the 18th arrondissement, working with immigrant families, seeing firsthand the challenges Marcus faced every day. Genevieve, too, began to change. She funded a scholarship for underprivileged medical students, her name now linked to a cause she'd once dismissed. But not everyone was ready to accept Marcus. At a gala celebrating his work, a rival surgeon, Dr. Pierre Moreau, publicly questioned Marcus's methods, hinting that his rise was due to luck, not skill. The room fell silent. all eyes on Marcus. He smiled, his voice steady. Luck didn't get me through medical school, or 10 years of saving lives. Hard work did, and every patient, no matter their background, deserves my best. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus felt the old ache. He knew prejudice would never vanish completely, but he also knew he'd earned his place. Months passed. Marcus's clinic flourished, his research on trauma care earning international acclaim. Camille's startup soared, her love for Marcus deepening with each challenge they faced together. One spring evening, as cherry blossoms drifted over the city, Marcus proposed to Camille on the Pont Alexandre III, the Eiffel Tower blazing in the distance. She said yes, her laughter echoing over the water. Their wedding was a celebration of love and resilience. Genevieve wept as she welcomed Marcus into the family, her transformation complete. Luc toasted the couple, his gratitude shining. But the greatest twist came when Marcus was offered the position of chief of surgery at Hôpital St. Louis, a role no black surgeon had ever held in Paris. He hesitated, knowing the scrutiny would be intense, the pressure immense. But Camille stood by his side, her faith unwavering. "You belong there," she said. "You always have." On his first day, Marcus walked through the hospital's grand doors, his white coat crisp, his heart pounding. He passed portraits of old, white men, his predecessors, and felt the weight of history. But he also felt the strength of his parents, the love of Camille, the respect of Luc, and even the hard-won acceptance of Genevieve. He paused before the operating room, his reflection clear in the glass. He was Dr. Marcus Bennettson of Atlanta, healer of Paris, breaker of barriers. And as he stepped into the light, the city's pulse beating in his veins, he knew his story was just beginning. What moved you most? Marcus's heroism, his unyielding stand against bias, or his journey to a love that honors his worth? Share your thoughts and where you're reading from, Paris, Atlanta, or beyond. Your support lights the way for stories that spark the heart. Keep shining, keep fighting, and remember, brilliance can silence even the loudest doubt.